unfortunately, it looks like a permanent shock. And unfortunately, the United Kingdom hasn't grown anywhere near as much as it would have had since 2008. And that's been a big problem. It has hurt our investments. Brexit obviously wasn't, the best thing that happened for investments, because people in 2016 just did not know what was going to happen to the UK economy. And obviously then we had COVID. That was a problem for everybody. But these economic shocks have rendered the European countries quite rigid, as opposed to being flexible enough to move themselves out of that state and back into their, let's call it, equilibrium state, because they are aligned together and they just simply cannot move properly. And that's one of the problems from the financial crisis. That shock has now become, unfortunately, a permanent shock.
Well,
and that's just my opinion.
Is that right? You feel it's a permanent shock?
I do think that it is a permanent shock. I mean, people say, yeah, when you put the euros aligned together, the euro will be strong. Well, that doesn't matter. If the euro is strong, it doesn't necessarily mean that the countries are going to work very well together. It's been proven that prior to the EMU and the formation of the 11 countries, yeah. They were adjusting much better in terms of certain parameters were adjusting much better than afterwards. It was much more expensive to adjust than before. So it's obviously much more expensive for European countries to adjust after the euro than before the euro, and that's a problem. If it's more expensive to adjust, it's much better to have your own currency and interest rates to be able to adjust, as opposed to sharing a currency and interest rates and adjusting them, because then other factors such as employment, or let's call it unemployment. If there's unemployment, that's a welfare cost, and welfare costs are obviously detrimental to countries. And this is a major problem for the European countries in that sense.
Okay, you know what? Let me ask you this, because I'm sure that listening to this, there are people that want to look forward and want to look at what would be the best strategies. What are some suggestions, or what would you position in helping someone to think forward? Because looking back, yes, we know it happened. You can't change the past. It's how we react going forward.
In terms of personnel, people, or in terms of governments?
Well, let's look at both sides. Let's start with people first.
Yes, I mean, well, people can't really do much about it, really. There's nothing you can really do. I think in terms of
they're going to invest regardless. They're going to invest. They have to invest money that they prepare for their futures, for their retirement, for their families. So they're going to invest their dollars.
Yes. Yeah. No. In terms of investments, obviously, people really need to look for the future. Obviously, not as you say, not to look back. I think people obviously have to be very sensible with funding, with their funds.